Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of Final Stallions!
Welcome to the Midwest in January, the Why Do We Live Here time of the season.
You know, they always say it's, you know, I love the seasons, unless you're in that one season.
Which is the season of gray.
Yeah.
And that's what we're living here again in Cleveland, Ohio. New location, Spruce Studios. Same location, just moved the floor below. Klepp, how are we doing over there in Toledo in the tundra that is?
Tundra here too. I don't think it's gotten into double-digit temperatures since like Friday.
Well, we'll power through, and we're back in studio here in 2024 with a guest, Mr. Andrew Bonas. Welcome aboard the Vinyl Stallions, my friend.
Oh, thank you, friends. Much appreciate the opportunity to be here.
And it's much appreciated on us as well, because we love connecting with people through other avenues. And honestly, we were just talking about this of like how you met people in the Cleveland scene, and whether it be through an open mic, whether it be through just a friend of a friend. And that is how we got here today. We had Cleveland's own Ray Flanagan, who I actually just saw made the Bright Winter bill this year. So congratulations to Ray and his crew. That'll be going on at the end of February here in the Flats in Cleveland. But once we had Ray on, Andrew reached out and he said, listen, my buddy Ray's on. I have some good stuff to chop up here. And just like that, you're in the studio. Welcome.
Boom. We're here to talk about sports, right?
That's right. The Brow.
The Browns, man.
Oh no.
Go Cavs, Cavs season.
Yeah, right. As soon as one turns over, it's like you switch over the hats, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I was laughing about
Cleveland
it.
spirit.
It never ends here. The grit grind. But yeah, so Andrew, we were chopping up a little bit before, and then that's when I was like, you know what, we're going to record this because you're saying a lot of good stuff right now. So where do you fall in music? And I guess that's a huge question, but let's start on the actual playing side of it.
Sure.
What is your main instruments? What projects are you a part of right now? And how'd you find yourself just in the music scenes in Cleveland?
Nice. All right. Well, it started when I was very young. No. Well, I started music when I was a teenager. So I actually started on the electric bass originally. And my dad played music. He was in like a folk acoustic duo. Basically, it's like two guitar players, and they both sang too. And I started playing, I think, when I was maybe about 13. You know, I didn't really play anything before. I think a lot of times, I mean, you guys are both musicians, so you would know too. As soon as you start playing, you kind of, you know, your things you actually like listen to change so drastically, right? So it's kind of like the pre-life of playing, you know, you're listening to whatever stupid stuff or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I started playing bass, and I got really, really into like disco and funk music because it all had good bass lines.
Yeah,
You know, I know there's kind of that like you know, rock and roll stigma where like disco sucks or whatever, and I could understand that sentiment, but man, they have some sweet
it's deep.
bass
So like
lines.
what were some of those artists?
Man, like Kool and the Gang is great. I got really into like Tower of Power.
Yes.
Oh, love Tower
What is
Power.
it?
Yeah, the drummer dude just retired. I saw actually Garibaldi, I think his name is.
No, yeah, Klepp introduced me to those guys.
Yeah, Tower Power is awesome. I mean, super into like Motown too, James Jamerson, like that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where that's my pivot foot mostly. Like that's where I like originally really absorbed in music and got into that. After I started playing electric, I moved on to the guitar. Guitar is kind of over the board. And actually, I should also say too, I started playing, and since my dad played music, I was able to kind of like hop on all these gigs with him because they just had two guitars and vocals.
Oh, nice.
So then I could just kind of like
seamlessly
hop
fluent
on and figure out the tunes. So I mean, I started gigging when I was 14. That's all I did throughout high school. Play with my dad, play with other groups around town.
What a unique experience.
Oh
that
man,
early.
it was crazy. Well, and learning, social tact goes a long way there because you're playing bars and stuff. So, I'm like 14 or 15, learning how to interact with drunks. Like in that kind of that scene, ironically, like I teach private lessons now, a bunch of different instruments. And it's funny because what I learned from talking to drunk people at bars when I was a teenager is the same way you can talk to a little kid to learn music. Because it's very much like, like oh, that's cool. Or like, oh, good job. Or like, oh, I can't do that. I'm sorry. You know, like that.
Emphasis on
Yeah,
certain parts.
it's all yeah, it's all the way you speak, right?
Oh
You know?
wow.
Oh, wow. So that was helpful. But yeah, then I got into guitar, which was great. Did a whole bunch of different things. And shortly after I got into guitar, I started playing upright bass. Which upright bass and electric are kind of the same as far as tuning, but it's all different because it's all muscle memory. There are no frets, so it's super different.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like a trombone or something where like you can't look at your hands, but you'll know where all the notes are just by how far your hand position goes away.
You can actually
from
hear the
bass.
change like
Mhm.
in your ear.
Yeah.
Is there another string instrument that doesn't have frets?
Oh man, well, like violin,
Yeah.
and like cello, a lot of like the orchestral stuff. It's all kind of, first position, second position kind of stuff, almost like similar to a trombone, let's say. I don't really know how trombone works, but I would assume where like, oh, here's your B flat, here's E flat, but that distance you just kind of have to like have
Mhm.
in your, in your body essentially to be able to hit it. So that was cool. But then, so that's kind of how I came up with doing music for the most part. Playing with my dad, I did like a bunch of musicals when I was in high school too. So I learned how to sing that way, projecting, scared the shit out of myself being the lead of Oklahoma when I was like 16 or whatever. So you're
Nice.
fucking out and you're singing and all this. Then I started singing with my dad too. So being able to play bass and sing at the same time. So those were like really, really helpful skills to be able to play bass and sing. So I did that throughout high school. Then when I graduated from high school, I was kind of thinking about doing some different stuff, but then I ended up joining a group from Kent, Ohio called the Speed Bombs. And I played, it was like kind of an indie folk kind of band, we did something called the NACA circuit, where basically, I forget what it stands for specifically, but it's essentially like a big regional college fair in all these different spots where all these colleges would send basically kids who represent whatever college it is, and then they would have a stipend to basically buy whatever entertainment for that school for the year. So there were bands,
Interesting.
there were like magicians, all kinds of random stuff. And we were there basically trying to get these kids to hire us. I mean, kids, I was like, I remember the thing, it was kind of funny at the time because I had been going to a branch satellite school of Kent at the time, and I just got too busy with music. So I stopped going. I mean, I didn't want to say I dropped out of college.
Phased it out.
I slowly phased it out by the semesters, right? But I basically stopped going to college just to play with this band. And it was funny because all these people who were basically my age, like that same, like 19, 20 year olds, they were there going to college. So it'd be so funny where it's like, oh, dude, what's up? Hey, you go to the University of Alabama? That's cool. Oh, you're going to electrical engineering? That's cool. Hey, do you want to hear my album?
Yeah.
Like, hey, that sounds like a future.
You got to get through that early talking and then
Yeah.
you get to the point.
It was really fun. But yeah, I did that for a while, and then kind of went on my own way. And then I moved to Colorado for 4 or 5 years, maybe.
How's the music scene out there?
It is really great, man. It's awesome.
I mean, I could only imagine with just like the upbringing since, I don't know, 2015 or so, that of younger and just creative people out there. But
Mhm.
yeah, what is it like? What are some like venues, I guess, out there if we were to visit?
Man, there are like a ton of good ones. It's just like there's a lot of people, so a lot of things like Red Rocks is really cool out in Morrison. Like, it's funny, my wife and I just got back from Colorado. We went there, and you can go to Red Rocks because it's basically a park too, so you can walk on the stage, and it's basically this big amphitheater, but the stairs go basically dead up. So from the stage, it's just like nothing but seats going up. It's really,
There's nothing like it. I mean,
it's
I've never been there, but I mean, you see the
like
videos.
run the stairs if you're super, if you're feeling that physique or something. But
I've seen like yoga be put on, like people are put their mats and stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks like an all around unique like venue. That's one I want to get to, and then there's one called like the Cavern, I think in Kentucky, which is like,
I've heard that one too. Yeah,
it's like in a cave. Yeah, I know, like Cleveland,
Tennessee.
Tennessee is where it's at.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like where King Giz played last year.
Yeah, Giz. I know Tropodelics played there. I think
Yep.
Pigeons playing ping pong.
Yeah,
played
Pigeons,
there.
they play there.
Yeah, that would be a trip. Actually being under the ground and playing.
Like, talk about like what are those acoustics gonna be like?
I know, right? Like, what does
Yeah.
your green room look like?
A lot of reverb.
We'll
Just
look at some
just
dynamite and blow out some more.
the Flintstones like in the back.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, there's some really cool venues out there. And even in the mountains, I didn't play the Telluride Festival itself, but I was with this one group where we did like the opening thing. Telluride is really cool. That's like more on the western slope, but
Mhm.
you're like, 14, I don't think it's 14,000 feet specifically, but you're way the hell up there. And it's so funny because you'll be hanging around outside out there, playing or doing whatever, and it'll be pretty warm. But it's interesting because the mountains, it's literally like you see the mountains 360 around you because you're basically just in this like little, I don't even know the word for it, but like the sun comes up, you're getting sun, but the minute the sun goes down over the top, I mean, it drops like 40 degrees in like 10 minutes. It's insane.
Dang.
You'll go from, t-shirt and shorts to just like freezing your ass off. And yeah, it's so funny because I mean, there are a lot of hippie festivals, and Colorado has a lot of like, hippie things or like jam bands and stuff like that. So you get people who are just like running around not thinking about that stuff. And when I was playing music out there, it was a lot of like bluegrass, but hippie music and different kind of stuff. So it was always interesting to see like, you guys are partying now, which is good. But then in like, oh dude, like that sun's going down in a half hour. You gotta throw on something. But no, it was super. Yeah, I had a great time living out there and being able to travel around, and yeah,
You're right in the middle of it all.
totally. Yeah.
Well, but then there's the beauty of Cleveland, Ohio, that cheap living, able to fly to those sort of places. So
Mhm.
what, you were out in Denver, or so you were out in Denver for a little bit and then you worked your way back here?
Yeah. So I ended up meeting my, I guess, girlfriend at the time, wife now. She plays music also. She's from Denver.
And what's her name?
Christine.
Shout out to Christine.
Shout out to Christine. And we ended up playing together a good bit in a couple different bands. It was really lucky because at the time I was doing mostly freelance work, playing for a bunch of different projects. But I got to go to Europe a couple times.
Oh, dang.
When it was
Right
funny because
on.
we had first started dating. The dude who had been hiring me started hiring her on. So it's kind of one of those funny things where we're like, hey, I totally get that you want to hire us on, but just so you know, like we're dating. We'll still be a professional or whatever. But within a month and a half, we like had toured up through the Northwest, through like Seattle and Portland and that. And then we did a 2-week trip through the US and British Virgin Islands, just playing bluegrass in, the Caribbean basically, which was hilarious. It was cool. It was fun, but yeah, we got a chance to do a lot of that, which was awesome. And then kind of wanted to change the scenery. And we had been up to like Seattle a little bit.
Yep.
Like my sister lives up there. And it's beautiful in the Northwest. So to kind of try something different, we ended up moving out there. We were there for probably about 9 months, but like wicked expensive.
Yeah.
And like I've been playing music full time for a long time. Christine was too at the time, but it wasn't really like her calling really, like she had been brought into it because she did Texas style fiddle, which was really big in Colorado. It's a lot of competitions and stuff like
Interesting.
that.
Texas style fiddle. Like,
Texas
is that
style.
smaller one or like what?
No, it's the same type of instrument, but like the songs are different. There's more attack. It's almost more like swing or like Bob Wills.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to describe, but it's just a real niche fiddling world thing, basically.
Got you.
But we were out there, and then she decided she wanted to go into healthcare. So I'm from out here originally, like Munson, Ohio, Chardon, Ohio, but all my family is in Cleveland, basically. So when we were thinking like, well, it's pretty expensive to live out here. You want to go into healthcare? Let's just go back to Ohio. You can, there's the Cleveland Clinic and UH and all that going on. I had a ton of connections from living out here already. So we moved back here. I fell in with a couple different bands, and then she became a nurse. Ironically, she became a nurse, and then like 5 months later, COVID happened.
Oh
So
man.
she just got like
God bless her.
hammered with COVID. Yeah, it was real. It was not. She did like high risk obstetrics, and it was a hard time.
Dang. Shout out to her.
But
then.
we still played together. It was so crazy because like I really admire Christine a lot. She would go, so she was doing days and nights, like she would flip back and forth, which is kind of common with healthcare and things. But we were playing a couple different bands out here at the same time. So I remember one gig we played, it was this bluegrass band. We played at Nighttown over there, Cleveland Heights.
Did they just bring that back?
I think they just came back.
I
Yeah.
saw that.
Yeah, it had closed down for a little while, but it's back. I thought it was so funny because it was a bluegrass band, which is like, banjos and that kind of thing at a jazz club. So it was kind of like funny world smashing. But we played 8 to 10 p.m. or something like that. And then she goes, all right, guys. Then she grabbed her scrubs and went to work.
Oh my
to work
gosh.
through the night at this, at the high risk. I'm just like, man, you are such a badass. It's crazy.
Trooper indeed.
But then we've been out here since then. I mean, we were in a couple different bands together, but right now, like, we still play together as a duo. She actually got out of healthcare and she's in tech now, but we still play a bunch as a duo. And I do a lot of solo stuff. I have my own albums that I've released. We were talking a little bit before, where it's kind of like, it's funny. Like I've promoted the music I've done, but really to me, it's more like a documentational purpose. It's almost like a snapshot of yourself, because I found in like so many different projects or different things like that, that element of needing it to be perfect, or especially, like you record something and you go into like the editing, mixing hell phase of like, it's never done. And eventually it's like a strip screw where it's just like, nothing sounds like anything. So eventually you just gotta like, I got to get this done so I can move on with my life. So like these last 2 albums I did were just like these documentational, like, here are these songs that I just need to not have in my mind anymore. And they exist, and thank God. And I'll move on with my life.
That is,
it's like the opposite of the financial, like, okay, I need to get a manager now. I need to book a tour. It's like, man, I'm just glad that I don't have to think
Andrew,
about these songs anymore.
That analogy of a strip screw is the best way I have heard that process be put. That is so spot on. And I'm right there with you. Just being able to, number one, document something you're proud of and something that you just need to get out of your head, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, Klepp and I, we always talk about just jam band music. And that's why I love it so much, is that a song's never truly done. Like, yes, you can finish a song, but guess what? It's still evolving. It could change into something different as you do it live, or hell, do another take of it and fucking put it on another album. Like,
Totally.
it doesn't matter. It's just about like getting it down, and I'm in that process right now of just beating my head against the wall and turning that screwdriver. So
it's hard. Yeah. You can get through it though. That's the hardest part. Like somehow managing to it, like you show other people your music and you're like, what does this even sound like?
Yeah.
Like, is this even anything?
Well, and then at the end of the day, and something we touch on pretty often on this podcast, is like 99.9% of people are going like this or going like this. They either like it or they don't. Like, they don't care about the part in the second verse where you change the chord. Like, they don't care about that specific side. They're either going to like it or they don't. And that's just how it is.
Yeah. Every little like crack, and it's like your baby basically, right? Yeah. It's interesting too. Like, as you're doing music, especially if it's jam band type music, I feel like a song is birthed, let's say, like you write a song, and then it could be that, but then it like sometimes takes years for it to actually even become itself.
Yeah.
Like how you even perform it, or have had like the life experience to do it. Like I've had some experiences where I've written songs before, and I'm like, well, I don't know what the hell that's about. And then I'll have that life experience, and then later after the fact, it'll be lyrics, like, oh, yeah, I, in a roundabout way, kind of wrote my own destiny. Yeah.
No, it's a good way to put it, man. It's a good way to put it.
Andrew, what was the name of the bluegrass project that you and Christine were playing throughout the Pacific Northwest and the Virgin Islands?
So yeah, the name of that band is called Coral Creek. And it was kind of like, it's this guy, his name's Chris Thompson. He lives out in Golden, Colorado. And he does a bunch of different stuff, but it's kind of like jam band, but also bluegrass. It was kind of like
very cool.
Yeah, broad variety. And it was so funny. I mean, in mainland US, people are more like, oh, okay, bluegrass, banjos, it's understandable. We went down to the Virgin Islands. We went down, and we were in some like more resort type places, but we were just playing some random bars too. Some of them were kind of like isolated, and it was really cool just to be able to play down there and be able to share that music with people. I was playing upright bass in that band, and you can't really fly with an upright bass anymore. They won't allow flight basses anymore, right? You can have like basses where you can fold up basically into like a stick, but they don't really sound good acoustically, and that's just a different route. I didn't have one at the time. So we ended up borrowing one from, it was like one of 2 upright basses on St. Thomas. And this guy let me borrow his bass.
Okay.
And the thing it was just like a saltwater cloud over there. So the strings were like so corroded and crazy. And like,
man.
you kind of have to dig in when you're playing with upright with bluegrass too. So I remember, I think it was like halfway through that tour, I was playing and I broke one of the dude's strings
No.
because the strings were
no.
so shot. And like that never, like with an upright bass, you can't like it. I mean, it's really hard to break a string basically. So I busted the string. I'm like, oh no, this like local dude, I just broke his, string. Like how
Is there even another string on this
where
island?
is there even another string around? Like how's it like this is not good.
Bring out the seaweed.
Yeah, I need a nice medium gauge seaweed after this gig. But no, it was crazy. I took it back to him like, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I broke a string. I'll pay for this. And he was like, he was real nice, kind of West Indian guy. He was like, oh, don't worry, man. I got another string. And he just grabbed the bass, threw the string on. He's like, here you go, man. You're cool. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, let me give you something. Like,
Yeah.
I can't even. He goes, man, it's just cool that you could break a string. You could just keep using it. The respect. But yeah, that was really fun to be able to tour with her. I actually ended up going to Europe with that band before Christine and I met. We were in Germany and Switzerland, a little bit of France, and that was again all bluegrass and country music and stuff.
So how's just the atmosphere over there? Like the crowds, except like listening to bluegrass music. Like, is that popular over there?
Oh, it is so funny. I mean, like if you talk to like younger people, maybe not. But what was funny, especially because at least where I was in like Germany and Switzerland in that zone on that trip, apparently like that show Gunsmoke.
Yeah, yes.
It was like a cowboy show in the 70s or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge in like West Germany for a long time. And like that was their thing of culture. So it was so funny. Like people were really into it. We actually played a bluegrass festival. I think it was outside of Munich maybe or somewhere over there. But people were really into it. I remember one of the nights we were over there and we're just kind of walking around before this gig, right? And we're supposed to play. It was like it was the Oklahoma Saloon in Munich. And we're like, all right, well, whatever that's about, I guess. So we're walking around and we walk into this place. And of course, the streets, I mean, it's very obviously Europe, it's Germany. It has the architecture and everything. And we walk inside this bar and dude, there were like Longhorn heads. They were like guns. They were like Hank Williams albums. There were these dudes who were like decked out cowboys. Like
fucking up.
Like 10-gallon hats, vests, all speaking German, drinking beer, like, oh, we're gonna go see. And the fact that you're like Americans playing American music, it's like the most legit thing. It was so funny. People were really into it.
That's authentic.
It's literally, it's like this is legit. I remember so we did that show and a bunch of people were there and they were super into it. The next night we were off, so we thought like, oh, let's just go back to the Oklahoma and see what the deal is. And we showed up and it was again full. And there was a band performing that night, but they were actually German, right? So they would sing phonetically in English and then speak German in between songs, basically, right? And that was so funny. And I remember we were just hanging out in the back, and then they finished a song, and then the guy goes on the mic and he said, "We hear that the Americans are here." And they invited us up, and I was playing bass, and the violinist came out. Like I think it was maybe 2 or 3 of us came up and played. And everyone in the audience that hadn't seen us the night before was like, wow,
this is the real deal.
This is really happening, you guys. Like, this is an American band. They're playing country music right now. This is unbelievable.
I mean, that's kick ass though. That is bad fucking ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a really cool experience. It's fun to be able to share, like, I play a lot of different genres, but to be able to play like genres either like traditionally to what they are, to be able to share it with other people, to be able to do all that stuff is awesome. I've been really lucky to be able to travel around a lot and go all over the place and
big time.
So, yeah.
Do you have a favorite instrument to play?
Oh man, you guys are musicians too, so if you play a couple different instruments or something, there's always that one or something where it's like, I really enjoy playing guitar. I feel like I can really learn like infinitely on the guitar of like doing different stuff. And I think guitar is fun too, because I find it's a little more expressive melodically, and to be able to play solo and to be able to like sustain my life financially. Like that is super helpful and really
That's when, in my opinion, you made it. Like if you can sustain a lifestyle and play music, like you have made it.
yeah, it's fun to be like the bard or whatever, just learning a ton of songs, and it's cool. Upright bass is awesome, just for the sake that it's fun. I actually really love singing too, like singing real good harmony. I think that's probably like my favorite thing. Because when you can hit like, even 2-part harmony is great, but like multiple harmony is always like, it just feels good.
And that's one of the most important and essential part of a live performance. Like that's the biggest thing I've noticed when going out and about, or also performing myself. What lacks is the harmonies. What stands out to me are the harmonies, and it just fills that extra space. And yeah, that's very, very important.
Yeah. And then like electric bass is obviously super fun. That was my first instrument. So that's like the lazy boy. Like, I can just do this easily. But nice. I don't know. I think I really like guitar just because you can do so much with it, and it's very expressive. I think for a long time, because I was playing a lot of bluegrass, I did specifically bass a lot of times with that. One, because there aren't that many upright bass players in general, so you get a lot of work, which is nice. But that role of that instrument in that genre, you're doing kind of simplistic stuff, you're just doing like 1s and 5s. It's not super complicated. It's cool in its own way, but eventually you kind of become, I don't know. I have so much more to say.
Yes.
But it's cool. But it's yeah, I'd say guitar and singing is really awesome, man.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite bluegrass bands, just since we're talking about that genre?
Yeah, man, there's a ton of different ones these days too. Like you have the jam element, you have like more traditional stuff. There are some bands in Colorado I like a lot, like the Lonesome Days is a group. Our buddies back in Colorado, they're great. The Fretliners are really good. Other bands, I mean, you have, like Hot Rise is awesome. I mean, they're more traditional, like anything Bela Fleck is doing. Sam
Yeah.
Bush. It was funny when I was living in Colorado, I joined a band with this guy named Pete Wernick, who was his name is like Dr. Banjo. And it's funny because you get all these what's the word? Subcultures of things. Like you have these famous people in these subcultures.
Yeah.
No idea. So Pete Wernick, like he's super famous in bluegrass, apparently. Like I joined that band. I'm like, I don't know who the hell this guy is. I'm just here to, that's cool. We wore a suit on stage and like the whole, like it was trad, but Pete, I mean, it's so funny because he's Dr. Banjo. So he was the first guy to release like banjo instructional DVDs in like the 80s or the 70s.
Okay.
So, like the violinist was telling me about like, man, they were like, and this was maybe like 15 years ago now, but they were invited to Russia to do banjo things. And they were like, they went all over just because he's like this banjo ambassador or whatever. So
Wow.
it was so funny to me to kind of see this, like all these people kind of falling over themselves to see someone who I have no idea who it is. It's like you feel very, I don't say disconnected from it, but yeah, that's interesting. But as far as other bands, yeah, I think I'm not actually a huge fan of Yonder Mountain String Band myself, but I like the variety of things. I think a lot of people, and I like bands like, let's say Del McCoury, like, I don't know if you guys know Del or not, but he's probably almost 90 now, but he does traditional stuff. But I feel like everyone in today's world is so familiar with so many different styles of music that to just do one, I feel like you can do that, but it's really cool if you can then throw in like a random, like here's Creep by Radiohead, or here is a funk, maybe not even the way a funk song is, but something just to like hit on all the little spots, because I feel like everyone, that's what I really love personally. Like when I'm playing, like when Christine and I are playing, just to play stuff that sounds good. Like you can still do it under the umbrella of whatever genre it is, but then to be able to like bust out, we call it like a cheeseburger, our cheeseburger set list, because everyone likes a cheeseburger. It's like hit them with a song they like, so we can tell, like
I think I might just get a burger.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's hit them with something that they're familiar with, and then hit them with an original. Like it's one of those kind of like,
you got to put them in there and like
perfect blend of ingredients.
Yeah, exactly.
They grab about that.
Yeah.
So we've dove into how you or your playing career and stuff, but you briefly touched on it that you also teach as well and teach a bunch of different instruments.
Yep.
How did that begin where you were actually on the flip side of the learner process?
Yeah. Well, let's see. So I had been playing a little bit. I think I started teaching pretty like almost right after I started playing. It was just kids in high school that wanted to learn how to play guitar or bass, and I knew enough to be able to get them started. So it kind of started from there. And then I've always taught just because I've found like if you're trying to like live off of music or do anything, probably just in arts in general, like the more stuff you can do, the more it's going to help you if something inevitably falls through. So for me, it was like, all right, well, teaching is another somewhat semi-consistent thing you can rely on financially, and I'm good at it. So that was really helpful, especially, throughout high school I taught, and then when I was in that Speed Bumps band, I still taught, and then moving out to Colorado, that was really helpful. Just because, I moved out there without knowing too many people. So with gigs, I mean, you guys know from playing, it's very inconsistent, or it falls through or whatever. So if you're like, I got to pay my rent this month, but 2 of my gigs just fell through. So now I'm kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So to be able to teach is super helpful. So I ended up, I know how to play a bunch of different instruments. I'm not super proficient at all of them, but I can, of all the instruments that I teach, it's just been super helpful because, hey, you want to learn how to play banjo? I can get you started on banjo.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, rip a crazy solo, but it's one of those things where if you can get someone started, then send them off to someone else. Even just that is huge, like mandolin or piano or whatever, just to have more like rods out of the boat, basically, so that you can just have enough money.
Yeah.
Basically.
No, and so we've had one other of our buddies on, Jackson, who is a teacher of kind of what you just said, a bunch of different musical instruments. And I guess want to hear like your process of like, I guess understanding your student. Is it more so like, hey, tell me where you're at, or like let's just kind of like feel it out the first time? Like, I don't know, how does it work? Because I've guilty enough never taken a lesson, and I probably freaking should.
It helps.
Yeah, no, it does. To just be like, hey, this is what I know. How, like, where should I go? Like, give me a path, direction.
Yeah, man, totally. Well, it's interesting. That's a good question, because I find a lot of teachers that I've either had myself or have had students come to me who have, a lot of times they have like a one size fits all approach of like, okay, you like playing this type of music. Well, here's the book 1 of we're going to read notation.
This is
like,
punk.
Yeah, here's punk written out perfectly for you.
Yeah.
Like, all right, that's one way to do it, I guess. But my approach is, okay, here's this person that basically just wants to better themselves or even just enrich their life. I've had little kids up to like 80-year-olds.
Nice.
And a lot of it is just trying to figure out what their goal is and how to achieve that goal, basically. Right. So like, man, I had this one guy who was, I think probably in his mid 70s. And he wanted to learn guitar. He had never played guitar before, wanted to learn how to play guitar. But when he was like in his 30s or 40s, he was in an accident and he had like 2 of his fingers severed, basically.
Damn.
So they had to be reattached. So he couldn't even bend 2 of these fingers to play chords. So we had to learn every chord differently.
Wow.
And he could do it. It's just a matter of going, okay, you can't bend your middle finger. How are we going to play a G chord, basically? Or any of those kinds of situations. So really it is just kind of figuring out what's the best way. And again, like with kids, like I teach a bunch of kids too. And a lot of times, sometimes the kids, it's more like just be a nanny to my kid for a half hour, like I've had that too. But, a lot of times, cause kids today's they have so much distraction in general and like video games, like even our generation. We're inundated with cool things to do all the time. But having the approach with a kid where it's like, okay, I understand you didn't practice. I get that. But music is still going to be fun. Like it's showing like, okay, this is going to be fun. Even if we're just sitting here and we talk about Batman for a hot second.
Yeah.
And then like, hey, check this cool thing out. And you're like, wow, that's cool. that will like instill in them that music is cool, and then they'll shoot back later. Like my view, because I mean, you could have the kid that's going to be like, go in the basement, you're not going to eat unless you practice for 5 hours or whatever, but then like turn into an adult and all jacked up, you know? So like to be able to I don't know, just be like, hey kid, this is fun. You know, this is just a fun thing. Like you don't have to stress out about this or have this big, you know, thing about it. It's just you're here to have fun. You're 8, you know, you should be like digging a hole in the backyard. You know, like it's fine.
And I mean, you hit it. Like, I mean, the revitalization of wanting to play. I mean, I know personally a handful of my friends are like, I took lessons, didn't do shit for 10 years, and then I tore my ACL and couldn't do anything for like a summer and decided to pick it back up. Like, that's a shout out to Mr. Joe Belinsky of Mescalado. But nonetheless, yeah, it's definitely something that you want to instill that, like you said, whether it not be now, like hopefully you remember this experience and it's dope in the future.
Totally. And then you'll appreciate music later, even if you don't play, you know, it's like to be able to see music as like a fun thing as opposed, and it's been interesting because I've taught it like after school at some private schools and stuff. And I'm not a parent, so I don't obviously know anything about what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that a lot of kids have like a ton of activities all the time. I've had like some students where I was trying to even coordinate it, and that like they go, okay, well, they have chess club, then tennis club, and then math club, and then guitar lesson, and then French club or something like that. And at that point of the game, I mean, that kid's not going to retain anything that I'm showing them. So really it's just kind of like, yo, let's just sit here and just make a sound. Like, let's just, this is, you know, this isn't going to be on that. This isn't going to be on your final or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's just sit here and just feel like a human for a half hour.
Yeah. No, 100%.
You know?
No, that's great. I like that approach.
Man, I have one really funny story I gotta tell you guys though. So when these little kids are so funny, where so when COVID hit, I was doing all in person before, but when COVID hit, everything went on Zoom basically, right? Like it all went on Zoom. So I was teaching after school at this private school. So all these kids went on to the Zoom, obviously. So I'm figuring this out, and some of them were pretty good with knowing how to practice and doing it. But this one kid in particular, he was just like ADD, like crazy and crazy energy, you know, there's no way you're in his room. He's like, hey man, you want to see my dinosaurs? I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get this kid to teach or to learn. So it's very much just like, sure, show me your dinosaurs, man, whatever. Like, you know, we'll talk about some guitar maybe, but yeah. I remember this kid, like I was trying to get him to do a scale once on Zoom, and he's like, okay, and then grab the guitar, and he just went like this, and he just wouldn't move. And I'm like, Art, I almost said the kid's name, but I was like, hey, bud, hello. But I see his arms moving. He's pretending to be frozen on Zoom, so he doesn't have to practice. And I was like, damn, kid, like you're gonna be okay in your life. But like, I was just like, and then he snapped out of it and he goes, Mr. Andrew, I think we had a connection issue.
Oh my God. Saying it like Adam Sandler is what I imagine.
And I'm like, all right, we had a connection issue. That's cool. You're going to be all right as an adult person.
Yeah.
That's my role that I can help you with. Just be a functional adult. So get on it. Filibustering your guitar lesson.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting aspect to also teach over Zoom, I'm sure. As that transition, like, do you have our majority on Zoom now?
Luckily, a lot of them have gone back to like in person, which is really nice. I still have a few Zoom students, but for the most part, it's all like in person, which is great.
Yeah.
It was cool when like COVID, like that first year and everyone was inside. I live on the west side of Cleveland, and I would meet people at the park.
Yeah.
Like in the like spring and summer, it was warm enough because you could still have distance or whatever, but it would be at the park, right? So, and at that time, it was like literally 2020, I think. Everyone was all, you know, afraid of the world and didn't want to go outside.
Yeah.
But when it was sunny and you could go outside, it was just the happiest. Like go out to Lakewood Park or even Edgewater Park. People were really, it was just a good vibe, you know, and to be able to teach people in person again, because on Zoom is fine, but it's it's really challenging sometimes, especially
Mhm.
I teach like fingerstyle stuff, like Chet Atkins and that style too.
Oh, nice.
And I have my own like arrangements and stuff written out. But trying to teach someone these hardcore arrangements through Zoom, I felt sometimes like it's like Houston and NASA, or it's like, okay, there, astronaut. I see a third fret on that D string, D chord. What do you see on your end? Okay, you got the D. Okay, next section. All right, we got a G6 chord. You know,
Yeah.
just like reading to them, like I sent it to them, like. I hope to God you can read this craziness. I can't show you. It just have to be as direct as possible with my voice. But
that's an interesting thing that you definitely have to adapt to. But I'm glad you were able to like power through it and everything's kind of moving back to the in person.
mhm.
And are you like taking on new clients right now?
I am actually. Yep.
And where can I hit you up at?
Oh man, so you have my number, or if people are just listening, you can go to bonnismusic.com. It's bonnismusic.com. You can just hit me up there too. But yeah, all different instruments, even if it's just like music theory, or like why do you want to play music? Like any kind of like thing, I like, because I view music, it's like it's an instrument, right? It's like, what is an instrument? It's just a vehicle by which you do something. So you're just like expressing yourself. So whether you're just like trying to learn or you are playing, but then, I mean, even like releasing your own music, like, you're talking about where it's hard for a person in this world to be able to like find meaning in actually what they're doing, especially to promote yourself and just to not be crushed.
Yeah.
It's a very pay to play kind of thing in a lot of ways. And I think just having a good perspective about it, like that's something I've had to go through in the last few years of like, why am I even doing this? Because it's so easy just to be like, man, especially trying to live off music or anything else. You get those, like, why, like, this is so hard. It's so hard just to live and to function. Like, and you release something and nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
And some people might though.
So I mean, I was gonna I guess devil's advocate is the good side of this one here.
Yeah. It's positive too. Yeah.
Is the positive aspect is like, I mean, it's just funny. Simply like I've released one album with people back in 2017, and then besides that, just play random gigs here and there. But it's one of those things now where like, sure, no one gives a shit, but like next time I see someone who I haven't seen in many years, they're like, hey, you still doing music? Like, oh, they know you are a part of like the music scene. They know you're putting it out. And guess what? Like, there ain't that many outlets out there that many people find interesting nowadays. And especially when you like put yourself out on like all social media and like what you do. I mean, it's majority a lot of personal stuff. I mean, I guess some people may promote their own businesses, but really like people gravitate towards, at least, I mean, I guess I can only speak from my personal experience, but like seeing my friends and seeing what other people are involved in their own creative aspects. Like, sure, I may not like browse your whole website or do all this, but I know that you're doing that, and it's, I don't know, it does
have a good purpose.
It's known basically. And like, whether you said, yeah, no one gives a shit about you releasing music, like I'm sure people come up to you, and I mean, obviously that is the center of your life, or like some others it may be like a side hobby, but I don't know. I think just like people find creativity cool. Like just that you're doing it. Like, I don't know. I have that conversation a lot with my buddy AG, who we've had on the show, of just like the fact that you're doing it puts way more respect than the guy who's just doing nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
And not even just music, just like anything as well.
Yeah, just doing art for your own expressive purpose. Yeah, it is interesting. Like, there is like a higher, like, you got to just do it to do it. And I think in the broader sense of the word, where people don't care or whatever, but I think there is a lot of like meaning, like releasing something, you'll hear people say like they really appreciated it.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times too, and this might even just be beyond music, art and stuff, it's like if you have a certain expectation involved with the project itself, that's when it's hard. When you're like, oh, I've put all this effort into this thing, and then it doesn't matter. Like this one band that I was in with Christine for a while, we released this song, which was basically about like suicide prevention. It was right during the pandemic. We did this video and like this thing. And I think in our minds, we figured like, okay, this is going to like reach a lot of people and help a lot of people. You know, you release the song and the video. I mean, it definitely reached, I don't know, like there's like 1,500 views or something like that, which is totally great.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's whenever it's like the process is the thing, like the just doing it and to not expect a certain outcome. And like that's been like my view of a lot of the stuff recently, of just the fact that you're doing it to like sharpen your blade, because it is, if you look at it in a sense of I'm doing this for this purpose, that's when it's like, oh, no one gives a shit and all this kind of stuff and all that. And I feel like it's hard to divorce yourself from being excited for a lot of people to hear it, and then to just kind of like, I'm just doing this, and even if one person hears this, it's almost like recently I've tried to even think more of myself like, all right, here's this music I released. I'm trying to be as happy as I can with it, you know, because we were talking before, like it's hard to be completely happy with it because you're always kind of a perfectionist or whatever. But to know that you're just doing this to sharpen your blade and you're just getting better. It's like a snapshot of your own development.
Yeah, no,
So,
I mean, that's a good point. And it sparked, I'm going to point out James Berkeley is another conversation that we had, incredible musician and producer over in the UK. And he spoke how he was just in like a dark, like in his head state of mind where he like didn't release a video or anything for like a year. And then he started releasing it for this last year. And then he like looked back at just the 1 year snapshot and was like, I have reached X amount of people. I have done this. Sure, it was like a buildup throughout it all. And he's like, and then that 1 year that I took off, I could have doubled what this is. Like, it definitely is just like the footsteps and him. And then another local producer, Chris DeCola, he spoke how like whatever you do, and like, sure, you may reach an audience of 20 or 20 million. Like, if you keep doing it, like it will attract people. Like, because it's just consistency. I mean, I see so many people I know that like start projects, do it for a year, and then are done. Like, hell, I don't give a shit about Vinyl Stallions, and we peak right here, Club. Like, we'll still be doing this forever because like it's mindless and it's fun to see like how far we've come and relive like those experiences. And that's like exactly what music and like just putting out minute reel videos can do for you.
Yeah, it's like a artistic therapy session.
It is. I feel like this is my therapy session right now. I feel like I'm teeing off right now. Man. Club, shut me up.
No.
Yeah, it's good stuff. You know, it's a challenge to kind of figure out your place in all of it, but then it does have value to it, you know. The thing I'm like most attracted to these days, because I'm not in really any like a band per se now. Like I do a lot of solo stuff. Like I play with Christine, but we just do random off gigs. And then I have this two residency gigs at Forest City Brewery in Cleveland here, which is awesome. One band, it's like 50s and 60s country music.
Oh, nice.
And then the other group, I'm playing bass, and you got Anthony Papaleo and Tadeo. I don't know if you know those.
Ray definitely mentioned Anthony, and I know he does something with him at the Winchester.
Yeah, I play. Yeah, that's the third Sunday over there, and that's great. And it's interesting, like it's like a honing in process. Like I feel like right now with myself, it's a lot of like I'm really dead focused on becoming better, and in a sense of like, okay, I'm going deeper into my skills, and then I'll write some more. Or like I'll see what else I can write down in this new you know, lower depth or higher depth or whatever it is of your own skills. And I like that idea of, you know, you go to an open mic or whatever, and you just show up and you're just like really good, then you leave.
Yeah.
You know, or even not to put anyone else down or anything, but just to be like, okay, I'm solid enough at what I'm doing. I'm confident in what it is. Bam. And then I'm out.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like I don't know why that's such an interesting concept to me. I think, I don't know, in my life of playing, I don't know, there's a lot of BS involved with a lot of art things and people socially and peacocking and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's obviously not true with everybody, but you'll encounter that with all kinds of different things. But it's fun to just be like, okay, like I'm confident in myself, what I'm doing, and I'm just going to show up, do my thing, and then talk to people. I'll be, you
Yeah, be cool.
be cool, be sociable. But I don't know. It's interesting just to like, all right, kick some ass.
Yeah, make it purposeful.
Yeah, like intentional, like as opposed to just kind of like I hope I could pay my rent this month anyway. Here's this A chord.
Yeah,
But to be able to like, here's something that's really intentional, like like you said, intentional. Like been sharpening my samurai sword all day for this.
Exactly.
And then whack.
Nah, it's a good feeling, man. And yeah, more power to you to be able to set those, intermediate goals and small goals to like be like, I'm gonna practice, get this down 2 months here, and then maybe I'll start getting creative again with like writing and things. That's definitely just good heading in general that people need. What just in regards to listening, what some artists that have stuck with you for many years, or some new artists, whether they be local or national, you want to shout out? This is my favorite part of this, is when I learn and start figuring out what I'm listening to the next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see. So I really like people that play a lot of different stuff, right? So I'd probably one of the more influential artists I've listened to in my life is John Hartford.
Okay.
He's this banjo dude from the 70s and 80s, but he did a ton of different styles and like different feels, but his writing is really good too. Yeah, it's really cool because you have a funk song and a bluegrass song, but also songs that are really interesting. Like he has a song he wrote in 5. It's called On the Road, and he wrote it when he was really spun out on jet lag. And he wrote the song in 5 to make people feel like they have jet lag in this song.
Wow.
That's that just all kinds
of like creative as hell.
Like meta. Like he wrote a song like Don't Leave Your Records in the Sun, and he starts repeating himself in the song because the record would repeat like if it warped out or whatever. Just
That's
like
awesome.
silly stuff like that. And like he has a ton of awesome songs too. So like John Hartford is great. I really love Paul Simon, probably for that same reason, right? Just like a ton of different stuff. I really love Ray Charles. I mean, as far as other like specific artists, there are a bunch of artists that they played with, but like the Funk Brothers, like the Motown band, basically, like all the Motown stuff, like the 60s. I love like Sam Cooke is awesome, but then like Van Halen is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think anything that can do a lot of different stuff is probably something I'm drawn towards just in my own writing, because I like listening to a lot of different things. Or to be able to do like a traditional song of like bluegrass or country or funk or whatever, but then here's a reggae song, or here's whatever, like it's like musical whiplash or something.
Well, I have just the thing for you, Andrew. If you do have Spotify,
I do.
There is a Vinyl Stallions official playlist called the Stampede Shuffle.
Nice.
That has 10,000 songs. Spotify kept us at 10,000. So now there's a Stampede Shuffle 2.0 that has about 3,000. And you go from metal to bluegrass to punk to Aretha Franklin to anything under the sun. And that is it. And it's between Club, myself, and then a couple of other of our buddies have contributed to it as well. But that is what you just described as the whiplash, but also how I learned music, because those artists that you like, a couple songs I've dove into, like, and that's the beauty of it. I'll shuffle, be like, I know this, be like, I like this song, and then I'll just run that album. And that's honestly how I've been learning new music last year.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because everything it's kind of all the same in a weird kind of way. Yeah. In a like it makes sense. Like I could listen to Cannibal Corpse and then listen to Bob Dylan. Or like
it's on the same playing field.
It all kind of makes sense in a weird kind of way. Like you could kind of figure it as, or especially when you can like, you're like really in certain genres and you're like, like the language or like the verbiage of certain things, and you go listen to something else and you're like, oh, that was just like a breakdown basically.
Yeah.
Or like that was like that's just like a G run in this, or like you could start to see these overlapping themes, and especially for your own writing, then you can see how it's like these common tropes or whatever are used to, I don't know, kind of bridge those two or whatever.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, I say it to, again, never taken any formal lessons, but the way I explain guitar is like, you're on the same playing field, then you either go higher this way, you go higher this way, you go lower this way, you go lower. Like it's like I just feel like it's all there, and then obviously then the tones and the pedals are a whole different story of where you can take it to a different level and what you can do with MIDI controllers nowadays. But
Tone Quest.
yeah, the search for tone starring me.
Yeah. 100%, man. Yeah, you can get really lost in the pedals and all that stuff, man. It's insane. Yeah, I remember I was probably like 19 or 20. I was playing like a prog rock band. I was playing electric bass, and I think it was maybe at the grog shop or something. And the sound guy was like kind of this older cat. He looked just kind of tired. He was like, all these fucking bands in there quitting all these things. Like it's like because everyone had MIDI things they were plugging into and all stuff. And I was playing electric bass, and I forget what style effects processor it was, but it was like an effects processor with all these things. And he's like, "You have one of those too?" I was playing bass. I was like, "Hey, man, I won't be stifled."
Yeah, if I want to get dirty, I'm gonna get dirty.
Yeah, have you ever heard funk with a wah pedal? Here we go. Like, hope you can adjust hopefully you can adjust the mix appropriately.
Yes. Yeah, stay on your toes back there.
Stay on your toes back there, man. I'm changing every set, every song.
I love it, man. And now, yeah, it is funny just how many different options there are nowadays. And that's like what the intimidating part of it all is. But again, can always be changed, can always move stuff around when you do stuff live. So
Yeah.
don't get hung up as I look into the mirror.
Oh yeah. And so you play guitar and bass, right?
Yeah, so I started out guitar, picked up in college, the bass as well, and then more recently swooped this bad boy set off Facebook Marketplace, and I have been playing this for about an hour a day now, and it's been incredible. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I do that, and then I can mess around on keys a little bit as well.
That's cool.
But yeah, no, it's fun. Hopefully be jamming a lot more. Maybe we'll have to have a jam session when Club comes up into town sometime soon here.
Absolutely. And Clep, you play drums, right? Is that what you play?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess that's the only instrument I play. I've never ventured from it. I guess like I ventured into like hand drums, and I do have a xylophone, but I don't ever play it. But yeah, drum set, that's my core instrument.
Nice.
Yep. Club can lay it down like a moth.
That's awesome, man. Well, you could do the xylophone. You can always just post that up next to your drums. That's basically just like the stick, right?
Exactly.
You could Neil Peart it away a little bit or hit a couple.
Ding, ding, ding.
It's not totally mutually exclusive, which is nice.
Absolutely not. But yeah, no, I don't know. There's I appreciate you coming out to Spruce Studios here, man. It's like
absolutely. Thanks
I mean,
for
just
having me.
meeting new people, knowing there's so much life in the music scene here in Cleveland is like just dope. Like you just again meet new avenues, the spider web expands, and like we're just gonna keep trying to shine a light on this scene. People like yourself who are at it every day on all different fronts, but also making other people who aren't just in it aware that it's going on right next door. It's get out, support local music any way you can.
Yeah. Just having people be cognizant of the fact that it exists, I feel like it's so
Exactly.
huge.
I mean, people just like, and I don't know, people just get a stigma about local bands and what they can provide. And like, I'm telling you, you're wrong.
Shout out some of your gigs, Andrew, because looking at your calendar, like you got a busy couple months.
Yeah. Let's see. So my next gig, I'm actually playing at the Kaiser Gallery tomorrow, which is in
It's in Tremont.
Tremont. Yeah. It's for the Cleveland Tango School gig where I'm playing. It's like a couple songs every hour. It's basically like a social meetup thing. Some friends formed the school doing that. But doing the Forest City Brewery gig this Sunday, which will be super fun. That's a trio. That's a fun gig because that's basically it's very free formed. And like I said, I'm playing bass, real good guitar player, real good drummer, and we just kind of do whatever. The project's called the Lake Erie Roots Collective, which basically means like whatever that means.
Collective. Badass.
It's a collective too. Well, in that sense, it's kind of cool because when like summer kicks off, everyone's real busy, so we'll sub out like when one of the three of us can't make it. And there are a lot of really great musicians in town. So we'll have someone else come up and play. And there's like a solid core of people that come out every month. And it's always going to be different. So like say one of us can't do it. I usually am always there, but like one of us can't do it. will like, okay, here's like a mandolinist, let's do more bluegrass oriented or folk. Or here's like a couple months ago we had a Rachel Brown, if you know Rachel Brown.
Yeah.
She's
Definitely
she
the name
is
in Cleveland.
awesome. But she does a lot of like Patsy Cline and like blues and that kind of stuff, piano. So we'll cater the set towards that. So it's very much like that's a cool gig because you can kind of highlight someone and whatever their skills are too, as opposed to us just kind of like, let's play this song like this and bang, bang, bang. You know? But that, and yeah, just a ton of solo stuff too. I like just learning a ton of songs. Like I know my own songs. I know more cover songs than my own songs probably at this point, but it's fun just to learn cool songs, honestly. So like I like being the bard or just be able to like hit people with random tunes. And then like we're talking about the cheeseburgers, right? You know, hit a bunch of songs that no one knows and then cheeseburger and then song. So it like kind of wakes them up, you know, in a weird way, or they go,
how do I know this? How do I
kind of, yeah. Well, it's kind of this one, my buddy back in Colorado always used to say, it's like, hey man, play me something I know so I can tell if you're good or not. You know, so there is that element of like, all right, got to reel them back in. You know, you don't want to hit them with too many obscure, like here's this crazy tuned original song, but it's like a bar, whatever. Like, here's just a Bob Seger. It's like we gotta bring the kids back.
Night moves.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, hit him with the night moves and then go back into the B-side Rush album. You know?
Yeah,
you gotta. I don't know. It's interesting.
You gotta cater. You do have to cater when it's
yeah. I mean, I guess, I mean, in theory, you don't have to. I do it for tips.
Yeah.
To be able to like, hey, here's this. Man, there's this one funny gig out here. I've played probably like twice a year, maybe. It's this place called Taps and Tails, which is kind of in Tremont Zone over here. And it's a dog bar. It's like a dog park bar, basically. So you bring your dog, they run around and have a good time, but then you get booze too. So you can like drink and pet dogs and stuff. But they have music there sometimes. And I've played like their opening to summer party or whatever. A couple years in a row, I did their like Halloween. It was their Halloween dog costume contest. So all these dogs would be dressed up and so, just like random gigs you get as you just do music. And, you know, I really like mic work. So being on the mic is funny to me, like doing the radio voice or whatever. It's just to be silly. But it was so funny because they would have me announce the winner. And I would be like, okay, ladies and gentlemen, in third place, it's, you know, Cookie as Bart Simpson or whatever. You know, like, but I'll probably play there again in a couple months, I'm guessing. But yeah, just do that kind of stuff. I mean, bonusmusic.com. A lot of the dates are there. It's all like mostly in the Cleveland area for the most part. Yeah, the Forest City thing, playing the Russian, Lakewood, like a lot of local stuff, just like honing it in. We do so Christine and I do this thing called Blazing Paddles last couple years. It's right down in the flats, and basically it's to commemorate when the Cuyahoga caught on fire. And people aren't from Cleveland. Basically, there's a river in Cleveland that caught fire in the 60s because it was so polluted. And that like caused the Clean Water Act and all that stuff. But now they have this event where basically it's right in the flats, essentially. And what they do is they block off like the mouth of the river and then down a couple miles. They'll set up a stage, get like some easy up tents and stuff. And they'll have like hundreds of stand-up paddleboarders and like kayaks on the river.
Dang, that's kick-ass.
Yeah, and we're like playing like right by the river, so you can kind of tilt your speaker towards the people going by. And it's a really awesome event. I think it's the end of June this year, but we've done it a couple of years in a row now. Christine and I and that band from Forest City, I'll get them on too. So yeah, it's cool to be able to have those kind of events and people, you know, just stuff happening.
Absolutely,
just fun.
Nah, man. Especially in Cleveland. I mean, we started this off talking about the weather. You got to capitalize in those nice venues, those nice days, getting outside down there by the river.
Man, I know. I'm always impressed with people. You're talking about Ray playing Bright Winter, you know, like Bright Winter. I've only played that once. I played with Brent Kirby once.
Oh, I've heard Brent's 10 by 3s.
10 by 3. Yep. That's a really cool thing he does there too. But the only time I ever did Bright Winter was with Brent, but we were the one inside band at the end. We played like the music box or something.
Oh,
and
that's
it's
the way to do it.
Yeah. And it's like the Bright Winter Fest. it's this festival in Cleveland, right? That's in February.
End of February,
End of
consistently
February. It's like
outside.
It is. It's for real. I remember I had some friends who played it last year, or maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember now. But yeah, you're just like freezing your ass off. But
People show up.
people show up. It's a huge thing.
It is.
Totally. So that's great that people are willing to.
Hey, any sort of festival that we can find in Cleveland. That brings me to the Soiree of the Stallions coming up here on January 27th at Beachland Ballroom and Tavern, hosted by Vinyl Stallions.
Nice.
And yeah, it's a charity concert. We just want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, DMA. Thank you, DMA.
DMA.
And we have 8 bands, rotating stages, all net proceeds going to the Epilepsy Association of Cleveland. But yeah, we're just trying to at least do our part on trying to bring festivals and things and music scenes here. And so yeah, hopefully we can keep working together as a community and trying to find ways to bring music through here, because I've heard a lot of people bitching that bigger acts are skipping Cleveland more recently, going to Detroit, Columbus, and Pittsburgh. So we got to get the music. Stop it here. Hell yeah. You got anything else for our boy Andrew Club?
Not that I can think of other than the final question.
That's right. So we always do an encore here on Vinyl Stallions, Andrew.
Nice.
We ask one question to every guest, and it's simply put like this. What is your most memorable concert experience? And this could be you playing, this could be attending.
Oh, man.
This could be a wow moment, a what the fuck moment. And feel free to name a couple if you have something that come to your mind.
I have a few. I have one specifically that definitely comes to mind. So, yeah, have a little drink of water before I try this one.
Absolutely. This is when everything lets loose.
This is when it really gets crazy.
And coming in second place, it's chocolate.
It's chocolate as a hammer. So I think I don't know if this isn't my top craziest experience I've ever had, but definitely in the top. So in 2019, I went with a band and I played. It was a bluegrass band from Colorado. We played at the International Beer Festival in Qingdao, China for a month. And it was this huge beer festival in Shandong, China. They do it every year, but that year they have all these floats, like these big parade floats. And Colorado is big with beer, right? So they had a Colorado themed float. I was living in Cleveland at the time. And somehow through the web of connections, they were like, yo, we need a band from Colorado to represent this float in our festival. So they somehow got in contact with one of the bands I used to play with in Colorado, hired them. And then their bass player at the time couldn't make it. So then the band's name is Ragged Union. So the guy's name is Jeff, who runs the band. Jeff called me. He said, hey, you want to go to China with us for a month and play this gig with us? And it was like kind of a crazy opportunity. So I went over there with them. And so, oh man. So it's the opening ceremony of this big festival. And it's like this huge event over there. Like when we first got there, and it was kind of like no one really knew what was going on really. But the minute we landed in China, they sent us to a recording studio to record one of our songs that we were playing. We were like, I don't really understand why that is. Yeah. And they said, so you can record it. Like that was their why are we recording? Or like we already have a recording of this song. Like, oh no, you're recording it, so we'll have it recorded.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, whatever. So then we go to the rehearsal of this big thing. So it's this huge stage. It was like nationally syndicated. It's like huge in China that this event was happening. So we get up there. We had recorded that song so we could lip sync to it on the spot. So the idea was that all these bands, so there were bands from Russia. There was they're like Canadian bagpipers, all kinds of random stuff. Like they were like dancers and clown, like all kinds of people, but they were all going to be highlighted for like a couple of minutes as like, this is come to this festival, people, this is what we have. So that night of the actual performance or the ceremony, the guy said it was, I don't even remember. I mean, he said it was like 30 million people watching or something like that.
Holy crap.
And they're watching. And then like the minder or the person who was with us, our group, we were kind of off the stage, and there was this dude who was like kind of next to the stage, but he was like wearing a tux and hair slicked back and like real, like, you know, good looking kind of guy. And our minder was like getting kind of like nervous, and she went like, she goes, do you know who that is? I'm like, no, there's no way. And she's like, oh, that's blah blah blah, he's like the Brad Pitt of China.
What?
So we went up there, like, so they could like Ragged Union, and we went up there, we did our thing, and it was so funny. Like, I mean, we were performing, technically we were lip syncing and like playing along, but it was this big stage in the back. They had these basic, I don't know if it was TVs or some kind of thing, but it was all these like Colorado scenes and like horses running and like mountains and all these things. That was probably one of the craziest experiences though, because then we did that thing on the main stage, and then the actual performance started, which basically it was like 3 half-hour performances in the evening, like every day for like 3 weeks basically. So we would trade with the, we would play, then this Russian rock band would play, then we'd play. So we were kind of alternating with this band. That whole trip was crazy because, I mean, there were a ton of people at this festival, and like primarily they were Chinese, and they didn't really speak English very much at all. And with bluegrass, it's kind of awkward sometimes because there's a lot of like tuning in between songs, because like the banjo never stays in tune.
Yeah.
You know? Like there's all this dead air, and you can't like, so hey everybody, how you doing? Like they don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I really like language a lot. Like I've learned some like French and Spanish and stuff in my life, and I was like, okay, here's a test. I'm gonna learn some Mandarin to say on stage, just to say something.
Yeah.
And like, hey friends, you know, we're Ragged Union, we're from the United States, like this song is by, like that kind of stuff. But that language is tonal, right? So that basically means it's not like ma and ma, but like those are 3 different words basically.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's so hard to figure out. So like the first 2 weeks I was trying to get my phrases figured out. I would start talking to the audience, and they would get all excited because it looks like here's this big white guy that's trying. You know? But I would finish my sentence, and then they look at me, and then they go like,
yeah, well.
I don't understand. But it was awesome because by the 3rd week I got my whole shtick down, and I would say something and everyone would just erupt clapping because I finally got it down. I remember
go.
one time I would do my whole shtick or whatever, and everybody clapped, and all I heard from the audience was, "Good job,
Let's go."
But yeah, I would say that. I mean, that has to be probably one of the craziest experiences musically for me. And then
That's out of control.
yeah, and like playing internationally has been cool too. Played at a festival in France once, which was really cool. And yeah, honestly, like playing music in Germany was awesome. And even out here, like I've had the chance to play some cool bands. I think like the funnest, I mean, those like the China gig, that's just crazy. So like that's
30 million people.
I think my favorite gigs though is when you're with like a tight band, or like it's really fun, and you show up to a place and no one knows who you are, and you know you're about to just like sound awesome. Like you're like so confident in the fact that you're going to be good, and that you're like proud of it. Like that is just the highlight. Like that's the peak. I think that is, and I can't think of any one situation. I've had like multiple incarnations of that in my life, but that's always like like a cool project where you're just awesome.
And you don't spot a single face in the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, all right, like buckle up, kids. This is going to be awesome.
Oh yeah.
You know, like that's when it's like, all right, we're going to do something.
Yeah. That's out of body.
Yeah. So
Love it, man. Well, appreciate you sharing. It's always fun to just hear where people go. And we sometimes say maybe we should like prep our guests with that question, but then it gives you too much time to think. I want raw. I want what comes to your mind as soon as you hear that.
Yeah,
so
it's like a Rorschach test or whatever.
Exactly.
What do you see here?
Yeah, and it's just the most memorable. And then people turn around on us sometimes. I'm just like, duh. Duh.
I've had a lot of memorable in it, like I'm trying to not remember it kind of way, but
Yeah. We've heard some pretty some weird stories, but one day we'll put a compilation together of all those from our first episodes.
Weird story compilation. Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, we've heard some pretty strange things here. But
awesome.
yeah, man, appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure to just like chop it up. Like I said, I love just seeing where conversation goes. And like I said, one moment there, I was in my therapy session.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. And yeah, if I can, like, if anyone's interested in the music I've done, it's just Andrew Bonas on Spotify. Another project I was in is called Tone Deaf Mockingbird. That was a couple years back. But if you just look up Andrew Bonas, I have a couple albums out.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to throw everything in like what we post in promotion as well to follow the links for Andrew. But yeah, no, could not thank you enough for coming on, and I'm sure we'll cross paths soon here in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well,
Thanks.
we'll do
Right
we'll do a
on.
little bit of sign out here. So my name is Bruce,
Andrew.
Clap.
and this has been another episode of Vinyl Stallion.
Nice. You guys good at that.
Far too many episodes of practice.